Hi everyone and welcome to Space Council, which is a card drafting game for 2 to 4 players. Players are going to be ambassadors in an intergalactic political system, and they'll be drafting these politician cards over the course of 3 rounds. Each card belongs to one of 4 races, so you can see here shown by the shapes of the symbols on the top of the cards. They're also going to have a way of scoring influence points, which is how players are going to determine who wins the game at the end. On the bottom half of the card, you'll see that each card has a special ability and an icon. The icons relate to the 4 political skill tracks. You have diplomacy, bureaucracy, economy and military. And all players are going to compete for positions on this track, both high and low. Players will draft cards over the course of 3 rounds, selecting 7 cards each round, ending up with a total of 21. They will play 9 cards into their High Council, where the position is very important. They'll play cards starting at the top left and then working either down or across to fill all 9 spaces across the course of the 3 rounds. The other 12 cards are going to be played into a personal discard pile. They will be used as advisors. The cards in the High Council determine how you will score influence points at the end of the game. And we'll be looking at both the icons on the tops of the cards and the text, which explains how influence points are scored. The 12 cards placed as advisors will give a player a number of abilities during the game and allow them to manipulate the political skills track, not just for themselves, but for all players. Let's have a look in detail at how these 4 cards work. So, if played into the top section as a High Councillor, this triangle card here would be worth 4 influence points for having the least military, a further 1 influence point if you have 2 less than every other player, and an influence point if you have 0 military skill. That relates to the military track here on the main board. The bottom of the card shows the bureaucracy icon. Using that, a player can either move themselves up the bureaucracy track or move any other player up or down. The skills tracks represent the political skills of the cards that you're using, and moving the other players up represents the debates that the politicians will have. You can either increase your own skill or manipulate the skill of other players. Let's have a look at the next card we have here. This scores 4 influence points if you have the most diplomacy, a further influence point if you have 3 more than every other player, and 1 influence point if you have more than 10. This allows you to turn 1 bureaucracy into 2 diplomacy. So you'll be taking your marker on the bureaucracy track, taking it down by 1, and increasing your marker on the diplomacy track by 2. This also shows the diplomacy icon, as we explained earlier. This square card has the military icon on, allows you to repeat an ability, which would be an ability that you've already played within your discard pile. This one also scores you points for the least bureaucracy. The final card we have here scores you points for having the most military, gets you the economy symbol, which allows you to manipulate the economy skill track, and finally allows you to move any number of hexagons. So, looking at our tableau of High Council cards here, we could move the position of either of these 2 hexagon cards to anywhere else within the tableau. Let's have a look now at how points are scored at the end of the game. This card here rescores this column divided by 2. So this column would score us 3 influence points for this card, and 4 influence points if I had the least economy. 1 influence if you had 2 less than every other player, and 1 if you had 0. Let's say I met all the conditions of this card and scored 6 influence points. This one would score me 6, this one would score me 3, and this one would score me 5. The total of the other 2 divided by 2 rounded up. Looking at this column, I'll start with this card in the middle here that says 1 influence point per triangle in this row and column. There is only 1 other triangle card in this row and column, so that would score me 1 point. you can see how the position of these High Counselor cards matters in relation to cards that score points like this. Here we have one that scores us points for the most diplomacy, and here we have another one that scores us 3 straight victory points. In this column, I have this card here that says 2 influence points for each other race in this row and column. So it doesn't count circles, and we only have the hexagon here, so this card would score 2 points. This one rescores the row divided by 2, works in the same way as we did here with the column. The final card here is again having the most diplomacy. Once players add up all their influence points scored from the cards and the bonuses on the track, the person with the most influence points will win. So the bonuses on the track are simply the first player to reach space 10 on each of the 4 tracks will collect the bonus victory point token, and that's worth 5 additional victory points. Also, the first player to reach both of these points on the track at the same time, first person there, will release this victory point chip, again worth 5 victory points. The game plays quite quickly over the course of 3 rounds. Each round of drafting does work slightly differently. In the first round, players start with 8 cards, select 2, and pass 6 clockwise to the next player. The 6 cards that they receive are then added to the 2 cards that they kept, and they keep 4. This allows players to see lots of cards in the first round of drafting and change their mind if they feel they want to go for a different strategy. In the following 2 rounds, players will keep both cards in each round. Of the final 2 cards, 1 is kept and 1 is discarded. The card that you discard will show one of the 4 skill icons, and your neighbouring players will gain skill based on the skill card that you discard. So if in a round of drafting I discarded this card here with the economy symbol, the players to my left and right would both increase their place on the economy track. In a 2-player game, your opponent would gain 2 skill points in that track, so they would move their marker up 2 places. At the end of 3 rounds of drafting, every player will have played 21 cards. After each round of drafting, players will play cards in turn, starting with the first player, who will play 1 card, either into their High Council or as an advisor, gaining the abilities on the bottom. Play then passes to the next player clockwise, until each player has played 7 cards in each round. At the end of the round, first player moves clockwise, and the next player will become first player for the second round of drafting. At the end of 3 rounds, the person who has scored the most influence points wins. Thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you again soon.